Hello and welcome back to Yappin' About Mappin', the show where I talk about the maps that I make for Team Fortress 2 Classified. Not Team Fortress 2 Classic, but that was the name of the game the last time I made one of these. So stuff has changed since then. I'm now working on this 4-DOM map, which I'll show you and talk about in this episode. 4-DOM Priority. The name being that because I am intending to make it themed kind of like a package sorting facility. Yeah, so this was the first version of this map. It was a 4-DOM map with 4 points. Very tiny map. It was very, very small. In fact, you exit spawn like you just saw me here, and you're immediately on your first point. And when you read these incomprehensible signs, you come into this just tiny little 4-way connector, and you're already at the enemy points. This is a little bit of an experiment. I was playing a map, another 4-DOM map during our weekly playtest, and I thought that the points were kind of too far away from each other, and I thought, I wonder if it would be good if the points are really close together, because then you just don't lose momentum, and all your attention is focused to going somewhere, and there's always something to do. That sucked. This map sucked. It was really not fun. It was extraordinarily chaotic. You were just kind of under attack from all angles at once. It was nauseating to play. And I felt like I needed to go sit down and close my eyes after a while after playing it, just because of just how much was going on. Like when you were playing it, you were really just, no matter where you turned, there was someone shooting at you and you're shooting at someone, and it was just absolute chaos. I mean, the layout of the map is very simple. You know, like this is your point. We already talked about this sort of 4-way connector here, which leads into identical, or nearly identical, because it's mirror symmetry points for each team. There are these secondary routes, like this one that goes up into this upper area, and back down into there, and then also another one over here, which takes you to your other adjacent point through this just tiny little hallway here. I think maybe when I made this map too, I was reflecting a bit on how I tend to overscale things when I make maps, and so I was like, okay, well I'll just not overscale it, and then I just completely underscaled it. So yeah, there's not really a whole lot to say about this map other than it was just way too tight and way too chaotic, and people suggested maybe I should just make the mid area a bit bigger, and I did start trying to do that, but I just didn't really care. I kind of lost motivation to continue this. I was also still not a big fan of the 4-DOM 4-point concept, because it's like I've kind of become a believer that anything that splits team attention in Team Fortress 2 is usually not very good. That's why I think Gravel Pit was not a very popular map in the end, as well as maps like it. And I've just noticed this trend among all the maps we've playtested that the more places you have to go and the more things that you, or not have to go, but the more places you can go and the more things you can do, and the more your attention gets split, the more the teams break up, and the more the teams break up, the more it feels like just kind of random deathmatch, and it doesn't lean well into the nice kind of team-oriented gameplay of Team Fortress 2. So this map was just kind of an abject failure. And another weird thing about this map is that you start with your point already owned by you. Normally you have to capture it. But the reason for that was because I had a funny little idea where if you capture a point, which I'll just do here very quickly, you'll see what happens. Ta-da! Crits! Crits everywhere! Ah! This is a little idea that I had, being that I thought that when you do this, it would give you the chance to sort of clear the area and move on to the next point. So you'd move in with your crits bonus and start taking the next point. It's an idea to try and give teams momentum, rather than just kind of getting bogged down on one point and then dying and then starting over again. What this really added up to was you just kind of got crits bonuses all the time, because I might be over here fighting yellow, having a great time fighting yellow, and then blue's point gets captured by my team, and suddenly I have crits. Or maybe I'm fighting someone here on yellow, and then they capture one of the other points, and then they have crits. So basically, it just ended up with randomly everybody getting crits at times, and it wasn't awesome. So, yeah, this map didn't really work all that well. Oh, and it's about to end anyway, because of the timer, or the point counter. But anyway, there's not a whole lot much to say about this map, so instead, I'm actually going to go talk about a different map. A map called Dom Export. Oops, map. Oh my god, I can't type at all. Dom Export. And we'll just go straight to B1. I'm not going to look at the older versions because, I don't know, who cares? I'm going to look at the latest version that ever came out. So Dom Export is a fairly old map, at least in terms of the mapping community for TF2C. It was made by our admin and God King Emperor for Life, Jaws. And it was one of the first maps that was made... In fact, it might have been the first map made in our community. It's actually made before I even joined. Just get rid of that crap there. So I'm going to talk about this map, and I'm going to be a bit critical of it, because I think it does have some problems, but don't worry, I already asked Jaws very nicely if I can tear his map to pieces, and he said sure. He said be extra mean about it, too, so I'll make sure to be just unbelievably cruel to him for that. No, but seriously. So, this is where I think the actually interesting part starts, because the first map that I showed you was like, yeah, I tried this thing, and it didn't really work, and that was the end. So, I decided to revisit this concept of DOM export because Jaws talked about this for a while, and I thought it was an interesting concept that I wanted to follow up on, but I never really, I don't know, bothered to until that last map didn't work, and then I thought, hey, you know what? I'm already making a domination map for 4-team. Maybe I should try it again. And this concept is based very similarly to maps like Flask and to a lesser extent Frigid in 4-team. And it kind of comes down to the idea that like 4-team tends to be very, very chaotic because there's 3 times as many enemies as there are teammates. Your team is smaller, and so it becomes a lot more complex to make a level for. And you can do it in a couple of ways. And like one is to make a sort of like radial symmetry thing, which I think requires a sort of race to the middle kind of gameplay, like what Sisyphus does, and that works pretty well. Or you can do this mirror symmetry thing where, like in Flask or in, to a lesser extent, Frigid, you kind of have these implicit pairings. So here we have red versus blue, and then we have this middle point, and then we have green versus yellow. And, like, the idea here is that, like, the pairings will face off over their first point, and the winners can then proceed on to battle for the middle point. So it's kind of neat because it's actually kind of like 2.5 Koth matches happening kind of simultaneously. And I think it works pretty well for 4-team because it helps kind of just round off those like sharp edges of the chaos that inherently comes in 4-team by just like focusing the action a little bit into like 2 smaller games and then having them like interact into one larger game. And that's what I tried to do with my next version of Priority. But I want to talk about Export first because it was this map that I kind of thought of being like, okay, I'm going to try and do this. And I've played this map before on a full server and also not on a full server. It's definitely better on a full server. And I don't dislike it, but I think it has some problems, which I'm going to go into laborious detail about now. The first problem is that I think that the map is a bit overscaled, especially for 4-team. One of the things that became very immediately apparent to me when making 4-team maps and also like playing other 4-team maps that we've had in our weekly playtests is that you kind of forget that like the teams are half as big, at least for if it's just a 1-team on 1-team engagement. So like a map normally that is meant to service 24 players, maybe in this area, it's only really meant to service 12 players. And I feel like this map is a bit overscaled for this. I feel like the frantic nature of it as well, given the fact that, like, okay, you have to deal with this point and also this midpoint, that's an attention splitter, which I talked about earlier, how I think that they generally, I won't say they do more harm than good, but, like, they do harm to the cohesion. And so having a big map with attention splitting just means that like if my attention is split, so if I'm coming out of spawn, and if my attention is split towards A, and I go towards point A, well, like the midpoint is all the way over here, right? And that just means that like if I'm over here, I'm not even really thinking about A right now. And if I'm over here, I'm not even really thinking about C. C is the midpoint in this map. And so I feel like what that means is that like it's you don't ever really have a sort of setup like you can on a regular, say, Koth map or something, where like you kind of try to set up on the point as much as possible, or if you're having trouble getting a foothold on the point, you set up just before it, because the setup, and by setup I mean like your team sort of globs together and NGs start to set up buildings and stuff like that. But here it's just like, I feel like an NG is just going to be so alone. Like if they put a sentry here, like their teams might be all the way over there or all the way over there. And it's just hard for teams to kind of like stick together, right? It's not really feasible to like hold the position here. I think this high ground here is kind of interesting. I would have like, I'll talk about this more in my vision for my map, but like I feel like the ideal situation is that like the winning team of an engagement should want to post up in between the points so they can try to hold on to both of them as much as possible, right? Like try to not lose progress behind you from the enemy team and fight the winners of the other engagements on the midpoint. That would be like the most interesting thing to me. But the problem with this high ground is that it's like basically impossible to get to from here unless you boost jump somehow, right? Like to get up here, there's no way. You just have to go in here and then go up here and then back around, and now you're here, right? All while you're under attack and trying to attack enemies and stuff. There is another way up here, but it comes from spawn. So if you're fighting over here, like you're not going to go back to this, but like, okay, let's say you newly spawn, like I spawn here. You can go over to here and take this ramp up here and go here. If you don't take one of the like 100 other pathways you can take, you get to here. And so the likelihood of people actually just kind of ending up here naturally, I think, is pretty low. And you saw how long that took and how many turns it took, and I don't know, it doesn't really seem like a natural place to go. So I just don't think that works very well for that as a post-up position. Which I don't really know if that was Jaw's intent or not, but that's what I would have wanted, and I find this just doesn't really work here for that. So yeah, oh yeah, by the way, sorry about the missing textures. That's because this map was made before the Steam release, and so like some of the paths for the textures have changed, and like this is an old compile, so it's a little bit broken. It's not completely screwed up, but you can see that, yeah, the textures are missing and there's some errors over there, so sorry about that, but that's just something you're gonna have to deal with here. Yeah, so let's talk about like specifics about this map. So aside from it being overscaled, I feel like specifically the overscaling becomes a problem. Like, for example, if I come out of spawn and I'm like, okay, I don't want to go that way for whatever reason, I'm going to go over here. It's like you have these like really long corners that are actually, like, that's the point over there. Like this really long route, you know? And you get like a tunnel down there, which I'll talk about that later. And then you loop back to here, which you could have just gone through here, and you're at the point now. And it just like when you only have 6 players maximum on your team, like you better hope that everybody goes the same way, or you're all just going to be sitting ducks out running around alone, probably even like lost, right? Like you don't even really know where to go, because you know one person goes like one person runs off over there, another person goes up here, you know, you go down there, someone else might go over to here. Someone else might have just gone a completely different way. Like they might have gone down this path, which we went down earlier, to go to the midpoint. Someone might go through this tunnel. I mean, I think that's like, if I count that, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like technically you could have one person on your team go like everyone goes down a different route. It's like you would like it's actually possible to have complete anti-team cohesion. I mean, I doubt that happens very often, but like the point being is that like it doesn't really do a good job of focusing people towards what is, I think, the intended objective of the map, or the intended initial objective, which is your first point, right? Like, the goal here, the idea is that, like, teams, like, group up around these points and capture them and then move on, right? But there's just so many opportunities to accidentally not do that, that it just, it just ends up with a kind of scatter shot, like everyone running around. The tunnel. The tunnel, I think, is, like, kind of serves not really much of a purpose. I mean, so it's like it's in this flank that you can go in here, and I guess you can also go in here and just go like harass the enemy team from behind. But this tunnel goes down to here, and there's a full health kit down here. But then you follow it, and you end up in this water tunnel again, and then you come back up, and like you're kind of back to where you would have started anyway, like right in front of this point. It almost looks like you should be able to flank through there, but then you go in here and like you actually can't, like, unless you blast jump again. Like you can't get up here. So to me, it just seems like it's kind of it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. It's just another place where players can like get lost and get away from each other. Another thing is that like I find this point, for how important it is as an initial objective, I find it doesn't present itself very well, right? Like, if we take the very, let's say, easiest, clearest, straightest path to the point, we even have it signed properly, capture point, and we go here, it's actually like hidden halfway behind this doorway, and it's like this little tiny building. It doesn't have much presence, I find. It almost feels like everything is hiding from me. I kind of want to go check out everything except what's in this building, just because it's so, like, nondescript. And I think that doesn't really work very well for, a control point. Like, it should be the focus of the action. And yet it seems like my attention is being pulled everywhere except to here, right? I mean, God help you if you actually just went a different way, right? Like, if you just went this way, if you go through this water tunnel, I haven't even seen the point, and then I go through here, and maybe I go through this doorway here, and look, I've missed it completely, right? Like I can. It's so easy to just miss this point, which I think is a problem since it's meant to be where all the action is directed. The way that this is laid out also, I think, does not suit the map's intended flow very well. Because, like, when you come out of here and you capture the point, I feel like when you have control points in a TF2 map, after the nearly 20 years that this game has existed, like, there's a ingrained mentality into TF2 players to capture, advance, right? Like, you kind of just move forward and you capture, and you just keep moving forward until the game sort of, like, steers you in the direction you're supposed to go. And so from here, especially since there's not even really a marker telling you to go this way, although I would argue you shouldn't need one, but like everything is kind of just being like, okay, I guess I'll go this way now, right? Because we came from that way, we captured here, and now we're gonna go this way, right? And like, where does this lead you? It leads you to your paired enemy team spawn, and like, whatever. I'm not like a big baby about spawn camping, but it just kind of seems like the map is directing you towards doing it rather than going towards the middle point, which is meant to be like the natural progression that you're supposed to want to go this way and try to fight the winners of the other engagement for this point, right? And I find that the way that the point is set up just doesn't really do that. Oh, sorry, my cat just jumped up in front of my monitor. Get out of here, Patty. I'll pay attention to you later. Get down. There. There's also these things which are like the harassment routes. So like, you can go and harass the other teams, the other pairings territory if you come out of spawn this way. So I'm in spawn and I go this way and I follow this path here, which is, normally takes you to mid this way, right? Like it takes you over here. This is very like frigid-like, these sort of Koth frigid-like, these kind of balconies that overlook the point. I think they work. I just wanted to point that out. But there's like this other route that you go over here, and then it takes you to the other side's point. I really don't care for this. Because I feel like this very much goes against what this map is supposed to be about. Which is this kind of like first encounter with a team, and then the winners get to go fight the other team, the other pairing's winners, right? Like, you're supposed to go this way. Or maybe up this way or this way. Like, the point, you're supposed to be kind of, you should be funneled towards the action. And I feel like those harassment routes are just very antithetical to that. Like, it's just, if anybody goes that way, I'll just go there quickly, they're just, it's now someone who is, like, not engaging with the map's normal flow to just go over here and, like, probably die pretty quickly because you're probably alone and, like, it's you against 12 enemies. So, like, good luck. Like, you're not capturing that point. You're just gonna get mulched over here. So yeah, I don't really care for that. I guess the thought of this was that, like, well, if one of those teams is winning, then maybe the teams will want to, you know, like, if let's say yellow's winning, then, like, blue and red might then go over there to, like, stop yellow, but I don't really think you see that sort of level of foresight and like strategic planning in TF2 games, like public TF2 games. I'm not really convinced. So I don't care for those routes. I think they just kind of like divert from the intended flow of the map. Because I feel like a lot of the best TF2 maps, they're kind of funnily. It's like no matter where you go, you kind of just get like shot out at like where you should be going. And as a result of that, the teams tend to get stuck up together where they're supposed to at the places where they're supposed to be. And that's kind of what makes the game fun and engaging. Even if it sounds very boring when I put it that way, it's kind of like this illusion of choice. Like you always end up, you know, where the game wants you to. But I don't know. I think that illusion of choice actually is what makes the engagements more fun because it makes it so that it's teams clashing and not just random individuals that are lost. I have one more note on this. Oh, I mean, it's actually it's the same point as before. Just instead of the harassment route, it's like this. Even this route here, I don't care for it that much because I don't like that you can just completely ignore the first point and go to the second point. I feel like it negates the entire sense of progression, right? Like I don't like that you could just go straight here and completely circumvent the first point. Because then it's like if only half the team is here and half the team's over there, then it's like, well, I don't know, maybe that's not so bad, but I just don't care for it. I think it just splits team attention and makes it feel more DM-y. So, I mean, that was a lot of criticism because, like I said, I'm making a map now which is based on this same 3-point concept, but I'm trying to make improvements on things that I think this map didn't do that well. So, of course, I'm like naturally focusing on some of its flaws and stuff, but I mean, overall, I think this map is like fine. Like I said, I've played it before. It's a neat concept here to like have this sort of, you know, clash of the champions in here for the teams that won. I just think that a lot of the layout of the map doesn't really do well to service that kind of gameplay, and it's mostly just because of the overscaling and the over-routing and stuff like that. So anyway, that's enough bashing our community leader's map. Let's go talk about the version that I just made, the next version of Priority. Map for Dom MP map for Dom Priority A2. Okay. So here, MP waiting for players, cancel 1. I always pick Demo Man because it's my main class, and so like, thank you, Demo Man. I find running around as a Demo Man just feels very natural because that's like how almost all of my engagement with TF2 has been, and so like, you know, playing as the Demo Man just gives me an idea for the scale of things because it's how I more naturally experience the game. Okay, so as you can see, this is a completely different map from A1. I mean, I could have renamed it even, but I didn't want to. I wanted to stick with this this theming of it being like a mail sorting depot. Um, so maybe let's just go up and actually take a look at the layout from above a bit, because I had export in the back of my mind when doing all of this, right? Like I was trying to be like, okay, what were the things I didn't like about export, and how can I improve upon it? And I also had this idea for doing an export-like concept with the 3 points, the one in the middle, and the 2 on the edges with 2 team pairings, red and blue, as you can see here, and way over here, yellow and green. I'll talk about mid later. But I kind of imagined it as like being like Koth Lakeside, because Koth Lakeside has that like really big long hill in the middle, and I kind of imagined as like that's what the first point is like, and then the second point will be like another lakeside but like sideways. So like you would go up here, and then like there'd be another hill up there. I kind of abandoned this pretty quickly because I just realized that standing on top of that hill would be A, an optimization nightmare, and B, way too easy to just rush all the points. So I kind of settled for doing a sort of CP well ripoff in here. In fact, I actually did open up the decompiled CP well and copied over its ramps, and then made some slight adjustments to it and changed their size a little bit. But yeah, I stuck with the lakeside kind of concept here, but tweaked it a little bit. I think maybe a little bit of Koth Viaduct might have snuck in here as well. I get that kind of vibe from it. But generally, I was working with Koth Lakeside. I mean, you can see it's not as big as Lakeside, but that's also because I had in my mind that, like, you know, 4-team, there's only 6 players per team, so that means this area only supports 12 players. So I didn't want to like make it suitable for 24 players in here. It's for 12 players. And this is kind of structured in a way that I'm trying to like route everything towards the doorway that takes you to the midpoint. So in DOM export, C was the middle point. In mine, B is the middle point. But you can see like when you come out of spawn, I don't really like this area. I don't really know what to do out here, but whatever. No matter where you go, you come out this way, the point's over here, you come out this way, the point is up here, and you come in this way, and admittedly this one is a little bit off because the point's here, and then technically you do need to turn to go that way. But you can see like with the angling of at least this ramp here, I'm always trying to like make you go this way. Like, if you're supposed to like naturally want to go this way when you're done. I didn't want people to go to the enemy territory. Some people still do. I'll never be able to stop that completely because some people just want to spawn camp, or they'll just always head towards this enemy color or whatever. So I can't stop that completely. But at least this way, it's like, well, if you go this way, you don't lose the high ground, right? So yeah, I mean, it's also like Lakeside. You have this little room over here, except mine doesn't have the pit in it. There's a couple issues with this layout, obviously. Like, this is a stupid sight line here. I actually knew this was in here going into the playtest, but I didn't really know what to do with it, and I thought, maybe it'll be fun somehow. I didn't think it was that intolerable, but people don't like it. People don't like sight lines in general, so this is changed in the next version. You'll see it. I think I got the size right here, though. This one felt, to me at least, like it was pretty fun to play in. Like, it was the right size to be engaging this number of players for this point. And having this low ground here, I know that, like, technically attacking from low ground is a disadvantage, but low ground is also a sightline blocker. You know, you can spam the point from here. You can put a sentry here. Yeah. So, I'm actually pretty happy with these points. I don't think these are going to change all that much. You'll see that in the next version that like these hallways have changed a bit, and like the way you get into the building has changed a little bit. But yeah, the main thing here that I wanted to focus on was that like everything is designed to funnel you this way, so that like that problem in DOM export that I thought where like teams were getting too scattered, there's too many ways to go, and it's not even clear like where you're supposed to go after you capture the point. I think I did a pretty good job of like, no matter where you go, you always end up on the point, and you must kind of deal with your point before you move on to mid. That's like really important to me. I want it to be that like you naturally progress first by securing this point and then going to the midpoint. That's like my main philosophy here. Let's see, what else do I have in my notes here? I mean, yeah, like what I just said about like having to deal with this point, because like doing that makes a sort of rally point for your team. Because if you have to stop and fight a bunch of enemies, it gives time for your reinforcements to arrive, and then you glob up, and then if you win, you're already a unit, like you're already a group, and so you're ready to move on together as a group. And I saw this happening a bit. There were some issues with like teams getting split up a little bit. But, like, I did see that generally happening, and I was, like, pretty happy with that. So there's only one way in and out of mid, and it's this doorway right here, at least in this version. And that may seem very weird, because, you know, people are like, oh, choke points are bad, choke points suck, they're too spammable and easy to hold, and etc. But the idea was, and I'm not saying this worked very well, but, like, the idea was that, like, it does at least force you to enter mid as a group. Because I wanted it to be another team clash in here as much as possible, not just random stragglers coming in at random positions. I wanted teams to be entering as a unit, and so I made it a choke point. Now, some people were saying that they felt like this was way too easy to hold, like, you know, as a demo I can just do this, or, you know, if I'm a smart demo I can do this, you know. So, like, it's true. I do think that that is offset a bit by the fact that, like, if you're doing this, like, if I'm doing this to the enemy side, I'm not helping secure my A point. So we're going to lose our A point. That is a little bit at odds, though, with how many people really engage with TF2, I think. And that's that, like, you're trying to accomplish a team goal, but people are just kind of out to amuse themselves. And so, like, I'd rather be getting kills here. And, like, I'm not really that focused on what's going on over there. And then, like, that is just kind of unfun for the other team. So... yeah, we had some issues with this mid for sure. The one choke point was, I guess, not really working that well. There are going to be alternate ways into mid. But like I said, I'm still trying really hard to make it so that, like, you have a really hard time ignoring this point. Like, you will always be heading towards this point in one way or another, and have to deal with it before moving on to the midpoint. Because I think that this is the crux of this whole 3.4 team dom idea, is that, like, you don't get to go to mid until you earn it by securing this point. So I can just turning the page here. Yeah, so it's funny because this splitting wall on the way to the mid was actually almost exactly like DOM export. I think they even used this exact decal, or, well, overlay, sorry, to tell you how to get in here. I didn't realize that until I did it, but I think it's just more natural. It's like a sightline blocker, you know, to, like, so you can't just, like, snipe onto this point. Obviously, that would suck. So that's kind of funny, like little things from export that I just ended up, like, recreating just out of, like, necessity. All right, let's now talk about mid then. So, yeah, mid didn't work all that well because it's, like, I think right away it's just too big. It's, like, this was a good size for a 6v6, but then you have to remember that, like, in here, typically speaking, there's not many more than 6 players total in here, because some players die on both teams when attacking this point. So oftentimes it's like less than a 6v6 in here, and, like, this area is even bigger. So a lot of wasted space in here, not a lot of very interesting engagements in here. Yeah, just very little interesting action, I would say. Mostly it was just, like, teams would come in, capture pretty much uncontested, maybe have a little bit of a scuffle, and then die, and then the other team would come and take it. Like, there was never really a battle for mid. It was just, like, a few skirmishes out front, and then, like, someone would just walk in and take it uncontested, and then, like, hold it for a little while. I watched this as a demo from above, and that was very interesting, like, watching it from here, because I could see all the movements of the players over there and the players over there, and, like, that's how I could tell that, like, mid was not really being meaningfully played in, because, like, almost all the action was happening over here, and over here, and here there was just really a few, I don't know, small groups of, like, maybe 2 or 3 people coming in here, and never really holding it for that long. They would always just push through, right? Like, they would, if they came through and they captured it, they tended to just, again, that TF2 mindset of like cap, advance, cap, advance. They're like, oh, we capped, we gotta go now. And it makes sense because it's dumb. Like, you're supposed to capture all the points, technically, in a normal world. And I made it really easy to do that because you're on the high ground, you just go over here, you go over here, and there you are. You're ready to challenge this point. And oftentimes you're challenging it against teams that are already pretty softened up from fighting each other, which I don't think is a bad thing, inherently. But it's not really the spirit of the map. So, you'll see in the next version that mid is completely different. Like, you won't even recognize this anymore. I basically deleted everything and like started over. And my philosophy for that was like, make it as hard as possible to like get out of mid, so that you prefer to get out of mid back to safety than you do to like continue pushing forward. I'm sure some people will still YOLO their way forward regardless, but like, I think it'll be better in the next version. At least I hope it will be. One thing that I did in mid, though, that I was a very last-minute decision, but I think it worked really well, is the X2 multiplier. People didn't notice this. I probably need to communicate this a bit better, maybe on the HUD, like put a 2x icon over the B on the HUD, like on the B point on the HUD, because when you control this, you get double the points for this one. And I wanted that to be really obvious, hence the X2 up here, and like even out here, actually, there is an X2 here, but you know, TF2 players don't read, haha, right? But the point being is that, like, since this point is supposed to be a lot harder to control because technically you're fighting 3 other teams instead of 1, I felt like it should be worth more. There should be an incentive to want to capture this thing, even if it's just for a little bit of time, because, you know, it's the harder thing to control. So I gave it double the point rate, and I think because of this, I saw, like, several comebacks from teams which were losing by like a pretty decent margin, and they came back to win it just from getting that like dominating 3 point per second versus 1 point per second, or I'm not sure if it's per second, or like 3 point per unit time, whatever, over the enemy teams kind of squabbling over their 1. And I saw some turnarounds from that, which I really like to see, honestly. I think that's actually a really, really promising result of this mode, is because Dom has the issue of the runaway match, where like once a team gets a huge lead, it is really, really hard to ever stop them from winning, because it's not like Koth where the clock just stops when they don't have it. It's like they usually always have at least 1 point, and if you're so far behind that you can't even catch up, you're kind of screwed. Now, we have total domination to mitigate that, but I don't really like total domination. It feels like kind of a cop-out to me, because I've always felt that like if you're we're playing to 75, and if we're at the 65 mark and another team captures all the points and then they jump up to 63, it's almost just like, okay, what was the point of the match? Right? Like, I don't know, like it's not like the worst thing ever, and I think it's actually better on normal dom maps to have total domination than not, because at least you know, runaways are more boring than that. But I just don't really like total domination, and this 2x in the middle, I felt like they did a really good job of like making it so that a team can just rise from the ashes a bit if they manage to control just these 2 points, and like rise from the ashes in a way which is not just like suddenly we got a whole bunch of points, you know, like it feels more earned. I kind of like that. So I'm gonna close this out pretty soon. Like I said, I'm working on a new version, hopefully to be done by this coming Saturday, where I have made a few adjustments to these hallways. I don't want to talk too much about what I'm going to do, just in case there are people who are watching this and are going to join the playtest. I don't want to color people's opinions with like, oh, and I'm doing this to mitigate that, because I want to hear what people just really think when they when they're actually playing it. A couple of just other last thoughts that I had. 1 sec. Where's the last page? Oh, here it is. One thing that I kind of heard in the feedback, in like what sounded like kind of a critical tone, was like, They said, I've barely seen green or yellow if they're playing as red or blue, or vice versa. Like, they're playing as either green or yellow, and they're like, I feel like I've barely seen blue or red. Which is like, it's true, because it's kind of the point of the map, right? Like, red and blue are supposed to see each other most of the time, and they really only see green or yellow when they are progressing past this, or green and yellow has progressed past this being the midpoint. I mean, it's a different concept, and I feel like maybe people are just used to the idea of, like, you know, 4 team, you're supposed to just, like, kind of have all these, like, 4 teams fighting each other at the same time. And, yeah, I don't really see why it's necessary to see all the other teams constantly. Like, I feel like 4 team is just a sort of instrument that you can use to craft a kind of gameplay experience. And the way that I'm kind of crafting it is to have this, like, you do have your initial rival that you play against, and then you get to go fight the winner of the other 2 rivals. I think it's kind of an interesting concept. And one which is already, I'd say, partially implemented in, like, most 4-team maps, I think. Like, Flask is like that, kind of. Like, there is a sort of initial very close pairing of red and blue and green and yellow. What's the other? Floodgate is kind of like that too. I mean, like, it's not like you have to fight the other team first, but I'd say it feels very strongly implied that you're supposed to. I think Frigid is like that a little bit too. Frigid, like, there is typically a little mini engagement of teams right before the point with their sort of rival team. And I feel like I'm just extending that concept a little bit. I'm making it a little bit more solidified. And, like, it's true that as a consequence, you typically see one of those teams a lot less. But, like, I just don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, so, like, because the way I see it is this is almost like this ongoing, like, tournament bracket kind of thing, right? Like, it's like the map is almost literally shaped like a tournament bracket. You have, like, your team here, your team here, your team here, your team here, and then, like, the tournament bracket leads into the middle. I think it's just kind of a neat idea. And, like, yeah, if you don't see, like, one of the teams, like, let's say you just never see yellow, it's like, yeah, it's because yellow is getting wrecked. And, like, that just kind of happens in TF2. So, like, there are stomps, there are rolls. And, like, in 4-team is especially fickle like this. Like, you can be just getting one team, like, absolutely rolled the whole game, and, like, this just team balance. I don't know, like, there's nothing you can really do about that. So I don't really think that's a major issue, honestly. And let's see, there was, like, one other thing I wanted to say, I think. Oh yeah, another thing is that, like, oh, this just feels like Koth with extra steps, which, like, yeah, I know, I get the Rick and Morty reference, but, like, I mean, yeah, it is kind of like Koth with extra steps, and that's, I think, what's interesting about it. Like, you kind of have this, like, simultaneous 2.5 Koth games going on. Like, you have this Koth game, and then you have this other one, which, like, you don't really get to take part too much in this one, but that's because this one is settling who you get to fight at mid, right? So you have this little, like, you know, Clash of the Champions in here. I think that's kind of cool. And it's a concept that I want to continue to explore. So that and the whole, like, not seeing the other teams, it's like, yeah, I've heard this feedback, but, like, I think I'm not really going to do much about that, honestly. Like, I'm going to pursue this idea and commit to this kind of sacrifice of, like, you don't get to see those teams as much. And, yeah, it does feel like it's a couple of mini Koth games going on at the same time, and I want to now just refine the level around that concept, right? Like, the level will now be in service to making that work, having accepted those limitations. And I don't know, hopefully it's fun enough that people will enjoy it, and if they don't, then, well, they don't. Yeah, so looking forward to the next playtest. I've got some mapping to do to finish off, like, the adjustments I've had to make to, I don't know, improve on some of the level layout here. So, for those of you who do take part in the weekly playtests, I'll see you on Saturday, and happy mapping!